All right, good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. And Ms. Reyes, if you'll call roll call, please.
Commissioner Jones,
Here.
Commissioner Bryant,
Here.
Commissioner Paula,
Here.
Commissioner Porter,
He's on his way.
okay, Lisa Farkas,
Here.
Paul Nelson,
Here.
Isaac Crispin,
I'm here.
and Joan Farrell.
Here. It's a little softer.
Perfect. All righty. Everybody get an opportunity to look at the minutes. Do we have any corrections? Hearing none. Just cast a vote of approved by all. All righty. Discussion and action regarding revenue recommendations. Hopefully everybody took a chance to review the packages that were presented a couple weeks ago to us. And then I believe we have presenters from all, if I'm not mistaken. So whichever one we start with, Mr. Holwell.
We'll just go with the order in which they're in your packet, so we'll start
Perfect.
with Ms. Leanne with Finance.
Good evening, Board. We were in a department director meeting discussing things that happen in our various departments, and it was mentioned the number of notaries that the city does for citizens, and the discussion led to, I wonder what other communities charge. So I sent out a blast and received the information. The majority of them, as you can see, do not charge. They all believe that their city is paying for the notary. It is bonded through their community, and that they're doing it as a service for citizens. $5 is the maximum that can be charged under the statute. And as you can see, Curry County, Dexter, Cuesta are the only ones that do charge. Curry County, she did tell me that they only charge for citizens. If it's anything internal, if it's an employee, they do not charge for an employee that needs to get something done. So those were the ranges. So it was either $0, $2.50, or $3 to $5. I have no recommendation. It was a discussion item. And if we're talking any revenue source, then it was a revenue source, so we shall leave it to the committee.
All righty. Are we going to vote on these as we go along?
That certainly can happen that way. If you take action on each one of them individually, we'll have that for the
Okay.
record.
All right. So
And Commissioner Jones, if you do, then we also ask for an effective date for each of them as well.
gotcha. All righty. So any discussion on the notary?
Yeah.
They currently charge $5?
No, they don't charge anything right now.
Oh, $0.
Yeah, for the city of Clovis, we don't charge anything. and it's-
Oh, okay, this county, okay.
Yeah, it's because it's bonded by the city, right, which taxpayers pay for, so, they're recommending
If there's
no
any
change.
kind of recommendation, the library does between 300 and 500 notaries per month, if that gives us any leverage. I have one staff member, a reference person, that's all he does from the time he gets there to the time he leaves. And then I have 2 other notaries in my building, but between 300 and 500 a month easily.
Any further discussion?
Leanne, do you have any idea how many others are done outside of that? Roughly, like finance, or city hall? Is it in the handfuls a month?
We don't
Is it-
track them. I mean, some days are busier than others. I mean, we may do 40 to 50 a month between the 4 or 5 people that are notaries. So we spread it between finance and Vicky's a notary, so she does it. So, and I guess to Margaret's question, I would be curious to know how many of those are after normal business hours and on Saturday.
You know, and I can't answer that because it's me, Diana, and Conrad who are notaries, and we all leave at 5:30. But I know people are told at 5:30 that they come back in the morning, and at 9 o'clock we have 7 or 8 people waiting for us.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Revenue Review Committee, Mr. Nelson, the times that I have people come in is often at lunchtime when they're at lunch themselves, and oftentimes they'll ask, is there a charge for this? And we'll say no, and they're like, great. They're pleased that they are not charged, but they're kind of surprised that they are not charged, just for your information.
Commissioner, if I may.
Yes.
Margaret, I feel like if we have someone at the library that does this almost full-time, then that's a burden on the library staff. I mean, not a burden, because you're there to do that, but,
You know, it's become, thank you, Commissioner Paul, it's become more prevalent since I've been in the library that people need notaries. People want to have notaries for everything. They come in with a written document, you know, Joe Smith's going to pick up my child. They want to notarize. And even though we tell all of our patrons that need notarization, all we're doing is verifying their signature. I get the impression sometimes that they are walking out of the building with a legal document. And we tell them, you know, all we're doing is verifying who you are. But we get anywhere from divorce to custody to power of attorney. I did 14 power of attorney today. Annulments, warranty deeds, car titles, verifying police reports, you name it, we get it. And it takes, like this morning, for example, Conrad did not come in till 11. And by 11:30, I had done 14 notaries today.
And what does the library charge?
We don't charge.
Okay.
Because like Leanne said.
And who pays the bonds and stuff on them?
The city.
Okay.
Leanne, what is the bond fee and the notary? The notary's what, how many years?
The notary is $20 and the bond fee is $50.
So the city's only paying $70.
And then the stamp is another $18, $20, and the books are probably $20 a piece.
So $100 or so
Oh,
a
and
year.
what was the charge for the registration for the class now? Is that 50? It was 50. Yeah, and then another $50 because you have to take the class every year under their new rules and regulations.
I guess my opinion is if it's that extreme, I would like to see some sort of revenue come from it. I didn't realize it was that much. I'm thinking if you're doing 20 to 30 a month, it's not a big deal. But if you've got somebody doing that all day long, that is a big deal. That's my opinion.
I agree. I mean, we're talking $30,000 in salary and benefits for a full-time employee at least. I mean, there's a cost there. I mean, what is the service we provide for tax dollars and what is an extra service? And I think I agree with Commissioner Paul. I think this is an extra service.
Would it be a hardship on the library staff to collect?
I was just thinking about that same thing.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be a hardship. I think people come to the library because they know it's a free notary service.
They do know it when they come in that it's free? Because I know they can.
Sometimes people will say, how much do I owe you? And I,
Yeah.
you know, comically say $1 million. But they can't go to a bank unless they have an account at that bank. They can't go to a credit union unless they have the account at that credit union. They can't go to the courthouse. The courthouse will send them to us. So our hands are kind of tied.
I know there are businesses that don't charge. I mean, I know my husband has insurance and
Right.
they don't charge. I
Right.
mean, but that's still, I don't know, like if people come in and you're charging $5, they're going to want you to take a credit card, so is it going to be worth?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we have a number of patrons that won't pay their fines because we don't accept credit cards.
Right.
You know, so it may turn out to be a hardship. It may turn out to be something that it's a service that the library provides, but our patrons are upset because we're charging a fee for this known as public service.
Right.
And, I mean, at the max, so if you do 400 a month, at $5, it's $24,000 a year. Is that $24,000 worth of pain of the extra now you gotta do the transaction, right?
And, Mr. Chairman, members of the Revenue Review Committee, yes, when, somebody comes in and you're, working through lunch, whatever, and they come in, and you can just sign it. It only takes a minute. I mean, you just got to, proof of ID and, do the paperwork. But then if you've got to turn around and then go across to finance, get them to pay, come back, do all of that, then it just takes longer.
Right, and if we're gonna charge at the library, we'd certainly need to charge everywhere else we did it as well, so that's something else to think of.
We probably also have between 10 and 15 per week Spanish-speaking only people that come in and want something notarized. They don't know what they're signing. They tell us in broken English they need it notarized. We do have a lady by the name of Rosa Lopez who will come in and do notaries for us. But they don't have any place else to go. They probably have no bank account. They need something notarized.
Thank you.
And we do have the capabilities, to accept cards. We'd have to set the library up with that service, but that's not something that we can't do. We've got it at other places as well. The fee, if they did choose that method of payment, of course, they would have to absorb the charges that are passed along for use of a card.
So then it would be more. Which would lower charges, because,
It's
the fee on a
6%,
credit
4 to
card is-
6% now. Something like that.
You might lose people from even doing it if you actually charge to.
Chairman Jones, I'd like to suggest that we continue through the other presentations and discuss after we've heard all of them.
We can certainly do that.
I think it makes sense, as opposed to making this in a vacuum. I think we should hear the rest of them and see, and then we can come back and discuss
But I
them.
think they're all individual in nature, right?
They're not
We're
really
gonna- it's-
related.
Yeah, what's that?
It's not really related that you're just approving one and then another and then another. They're not like all in the same.
We're gonna have the same discussion at the end, whether we have it now or we have it at the end, I would think. Unless we don't have a recommendation from the committee at this time.
I have one. My recommendation is to leave it as is and go with Ms. Wanson's recommendation that we do not charge.
You putting that in a form
Can
of
I
motion?
Form of motion, yes, sir.
All right,
Can I second? I don't know if it's I'll second that.
all right. We have a motion and a second to leave it as no fee for the notary. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign?
Aye.
All righty, thank you. So we'll leave it the way it is. All right. I believe we have the fire department next, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm sorry, I didn't have a packet, so I didn't know I was next.
Oh, you're okay?
So I've got 3 items presented here. The first being a charge for airport transfers. The airport transfers are made as part of our transport service. Oftentimes, we're called to the airport to pick up flight crew, transport back to the hospital. Currently, we don't have a charge for that. We do bill the patient for transporting back to the airport. One of the things we're asking for here, which is common practice within the state, is a round-trip cost to the flight service. Currently, we place the flight services in a bind because there's only allowable one charge per transport. And when we make that initial transport of the patient back to the airport, then they have they get a denial and have to refile and explain why there's 2 charges, one from the hospital to the airport, one from the airport to the receiving facility. So by making that all inclusive, then the flight crew can file billing for the patient for the full charge, and we would be remunerated from that on our fee schedule. Now, when you're looking at this, I know that we included the state tariff. we had a charge from $250 to possibly $355 in the packet that I gave you, and I think you already had it, but I highlighted that $355 charge. First page of it, I think it's page 3 of the handout. Basic life support charge, since the flight crew is providing the service. We charge just the base rate of $355, no mileage with that. That would pay for our crew and transport, and therefore it's also a tariff set. The $250 fee, myself and the EMS director discussed this, what would it cost, crew utilization and ambulance, and the reason we did that, and I apologize I didn't include the state order in your paper from the Public Regulatory Commission. We have a 1-year order to waive an ambulance rule, which requires 2 EMTs on scene and 1 EMT in the back of the ambulance for transport. The reason the PRC has waived that for 1 year as of last week is because of the COVID overrun and shortages within fire departments and ambulance services within the state. And so by waiving that, even in our case, we've often had to send 1 driver with an ambulance to go out and pick up the air crew and transport them to the hospital. The air crew then takes the patient care transported back to the airport. So if we put 1 personnel on that ambulance, we didn't feel it right to bill the full charge. That's why we're looking at a rate of $250 if we send 1 person as a driver. $355 if we send an entire crew and tie that up at the basic life support rate. The second thing we've asked for is treat on scene charge, and that charge comes off of page 5 highlighted, and it's on that page 5, it's patient evaluation, emergency response without transport. We would like to institute the $136 charge. Now, when the tariff did pass in 2017, I came before the City Commission and we asked to waive that fee. It simply didn't seem right charging people if we went to their home to take a blood pressure or do a simple evaluation. And besides that, Medicare and Medicaid, federal services would not cover those charges. It would just lead to a bigger write-off. Since that time, both of those entities have changed their rules. They won't pay for those things, nor do we intend to charge for them, but they will cover calls such as responding to a patient scene. For a hypoglycemic, low blood sugar patient, we start an IV on them. We administer dextrose, the D50. The patient comes around, and then they refuse service because their emergency is over. We still need to recoup those costs. Medicare and Medicaid does allow for charging in the situations where a drug has been initiated, and so our intent is to bill that $136 no transport fee only on calls where a drug has been initiated. The reason we don't have to charge under tariff for simple evaluations or going to check upon somebody or small emergencies that do not need a transport is those items can be listed under a public assistance under the fire department side. And PRC has looked at both of these and made an agreement therefore. The third item I've asked for is fire truck standby. And currently under our ambulance tariff, we have ambulance standby fees. And that is that last page of the ambulance tariff I've highlighted there. When we do an ambulance standby, and I'm sorry I did not highlight that, my apologies, it's the very last paragraph on that page, mark 15 of 16. Currently, for rodeos and things, the football games that require an ambulance standby, our rate is $145 for the first hour, $108 for additional hours, and $27 for every 15 minutes thereafter. for an ambulance, and we do charge that. We've never had a fire truck standby fee because in one sense it seemed kind of crazy, but we've been starting to get some calls and there's not that many. I know when we did the racetrack, they couldn't race without a fire truck standing by. And when we have a crew with that fire truck, that's also my ambulance crews that are the ambulance, fire, it doesn't matter, they're cross-trained, so it ties up that crew. So what we've asked for there is the same rate, $145, $108, and $27 for 15. $145 for the first hour, $108 for the second hour, or additional hours. And if it broke down into 15-minute periods, $27 for 15. The reason I went with that, number one, there's already a fee valid for ambulance standbys. It's the same crews. As we've stated, fire trucks are a little more expensive. But in the handout I gave you, the very last page, highlighted, would be one of our engines, which is a wildland type 1 unit. And so when we respond to wildland fires, we're reimbursed by the state for wildland fires for that type 1 unit at $143 an hour, which was $2 off of that ambulance fee rate schedule. So we felt that justified to go with $145. That's how we came up with that rate. And so at this time, I would stand for any questions because that's my 3 items.
All righty. Does anybody have any questions for
I have a few
Chief?
questions,
Yeah.
Chief. So on the first one, on airport transfers, you're wanting $355. Why not charge mileage also?
Simply because when we're going out to the hospital and we're picking up the flight crew.
Okay.
We're transporting them to the hospital. We're not evaluating them. We're a taxi
Okay.
cab
Okay, gotcha.
for half of that. The other side is when we go back out to the airport with the flight crew and patient, all we would be providing is electrical power for their equipment and perhaps onboard oxygen.
Okay.
All of the rest of the supplies are the flight crews. We looked
Flight
at
crew.
the tariff, and simply that's why we went with that basic life support charge.
Okay. And the flight crew is in charge of the patient?
Yes,
at that?
ma'am.
Okay. Then I had a question on the second one, the treat on scene. I like that, or I understand that you're charging the patient evaluation fee or tariff, I believe it's called. But do you also recoup your supplies and medication that you use?
So we would at that rate. As an example, currently we get called to an ambulance toned out, difficulty breathing. We go to the scene, the individual is hyperventilating, we talk to them, and then we go back to the station. We're not allowed to bill Medicare or Medicaid with no transport or anything further done with that patient. So we felt it was not fair to charge individuals without coverage the $136 when Medicare and Medicaid wouldn't accept the charge to begin with.
Right.
For the one thing, all we're looking at there is recouping for the supplies used, the medications used. That's all we're looking at, the recoup on that, because
So-
we're not transporting.
So if you go back to the example you used of the individual that needed the sugar. So you're going to charge them the $136 and the supplies that you used?
No, ma'am.
No.
That's an all-inclusive rate.
Okay.
All of our fees are all-inclusive. They're not separated out. As you've seen the fee schedule in the tariff there, all of those fees and it explains out what an ALS and an ALS1 and ALS2 calls are, the difference between medications and cardioversion or things along those natures. There's different fees for those. Those are all inclusive of any supplies used on that call.
Okay. Okay. And I think the other question I had on the fire truck standby fee, does that include like And it sounds silly, but like when you guys are in the parade or nothing like that?
Absolutely not. And I'm sorry, I didn't elaborate further. I mentioned the car races. So the car races are a private entity that requires that fire truck standby.
Okay,
And private entities are the only ones that would be billed that fee.
okay.
We've gotten calls for birthday parties. We've gotten, and you know, in COVID, we did that for free. We did the drive-bys for free, and we still would. That's a separate type of situation. These are for any type of private entity that would require the fire truck standby. When I say private entity, that would also include currently any of our hazmat spills and things where we have to send a truck to stand by for a company that had a spill. And of course, it was my bust also that I did not have a rate structure in place for hazmat incidents. In 2 years, I will. When I come back to the committee, it just didn't cross my mind while I was putting these things together. The other night, we went to a hazmat spill, called into Texas to Muleshoe for a tanker truck leaking gasoline. The crew spent about 15 minutes and stopped the leak with about 500 gallons lost. With that said, the equipment that we use there, we don't have a rate structure in place to recoup that. It was minor, but there still should have been a charge to that company. In this case, we could at least charge the standby fee for a fire truck.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, and along those lines, and to put the chief's mind at ease a little bit, we don't have to wait another 2 years to implement a fee for the hazmat. That's certainly something that, outside the Revenue Committee's recommendations, we can just take that directly to the City Commission to get it implemented, and I would recommend timing that at the same time as part of these recommendations.
Great, thank you, Mr. Hobart.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the treat on the scene, are most all the ones you're called to Medicare patients? Like if it's an individual that just has no insurance?
So the vast majority of our patients, roughly 60%, are Medicare, with another 20% being Medicaid. Medicaid sets their own
True.
rate fee. Medicare also sets their own rate fee, but it's a higher rate, and we're required to write off. So in no case, Medicare or Medicaid, would we be recouping those exact amounts. That's also why we went with the lesser rates reflected on the individuals that have no coverage.
Does the fire department actually file for the Medicare and Medicaid?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for the chief?
Yes, I have one.
Yeah, Isaac, go ahead.
Thank you. Chief, I think it's all very well reasoned. My only question was, for the treat on scene, I just want to make sure it's clear. You're only requesting to change the fees for Medicare or Medicaid covered events?
No, sir. It would be for all individuals and it has to be, by state law, everybody has to be charged the same. We're only requesting the fee for individuals that we utilize a medication on scene. And that is the only individuals. And that is simply to recoup the cost of the medications and supply.
Okay, I understand. So if there is no supplies or medication used, then there would still be no charge?
Absolutely. That is our full intent.
Okay.
That there
I
is.
understand, but it'd still be applied uniformly regardless of the individual's coverage?
Yes, uniformly, no matter the coverage, any individual that we supplied medication to would be charged irregardless of their payer status. Along with that said, we have individuals in town that need assistance, such as movement that we respond to. We have several individuals that that we're called to a little over 30 times a month to those homes, and where we're not, and it doesn't matter their payer status, we don't charge those, nor do we intend to. That, we actually list that under our public assist in the fire service, and that's how we get around that.
Thank you.
Great. Go ahead, David.
Chief, it shows here we're at 111, and you're requesting to go to 136 to recoup the supplies. Is $25
Okay.
is $25 increase enough to recoup those supplies?
So please, on the tariff that you're seeing there, let me explain.
Okay.
Where it says current and new, this is the tariff passed by the state in 2017, and it's the only document that's out. The current rate was pre-2017. All the services in the state under the state tariff is under the new rate since 2017.
So 136 is the new tariff?
Yes, sir.
Great. Any other questions? Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
Chief Nolan, can you, one more time, describe for me why we chose that first responder rate as opposed to the appropriate, like, BLS rate or ALS rate? Because you said this is only for patients that are given a medication or a procedure is performed. It seems like the BLS or ALS would be a more appropriate.
So it would have been, the only difference there, it would have been a higher write-off that we turn into the city each year, for which we get no gain, simply because when we treat on scene, and that very valid question, but when we look at what Medicare and Medicaid approved to pay, they will only pay the BLS rate if a transport has not been made. That's why we went with that rate, because they had determined that, and we made that fair across the board. So naturally, we could go with an ALS 1 or ALS 2 rate, but all we're going to be reimbursed by the payers are the rate for BLS, since there was not a transport with it. And Medicare and Medicaid, if we don't transport, all they observe is a BLS rate.
I get that. It just seems like we are saying something opposite of what the tariff says. The tariff says this is for an assessment, and that's not what we say we're charging for. Just.
So we have room with the PRC for that. As long as we stay within the tariff rate, we can actually pick our rates, as long as it's where we're at or less. And that's why I said we looked at the write-off amount. That's all that would be. If the bill went to a private individual and we were charging the $607, then that individual would be responsible for the $607. If we charge the same individual with Medicare the $607, we are only going to recoup off of the $136. If we charge that an individual for the same call with Medicaid, we won't even receive the $136. It's 80% of that Medicaid reimburses. So what we looked at with that is, how is it fair that we're expecting a private individual with no insurance, no coverage, to pay the $607. And then, when they can't, I send them to collections and potentially ruin the rest of their lives. When I can't send the Medicare and the Medicaid patient to collections, because we have to accept what those payers say it's worth. And what Medicare says it's worth, no matter what, without a transport, is they're going to reimburse on the $136. That's what we looked at on that. What's fair to the people?
Chief, I'd like to nominate you to manage the healthcare industry in the United States.
I'll second that one. Any other questions? Chief, I do have one question. With the transport, are you asking for you to be able to either charge $250 or $355, depending on the number of drivers you send out?
So that charge, what we're asking is basically two separate charges. The allowability to charge that now. One, we couldn't justify the $355 if we just sent a driver. Because under the state tariff, that's a crew. We're asking for the $250 if we just send a driver. Mind you, that is set to expire December of '23. That order, where we would have to then go back under the rules currently, back under the rules of we must send an entire crew, and that charge would remain $355 for any transport at that time.
But if we authorize the $250 or $355, that'll take care of itself, because once that rule goes away, then you're gonna have to have a full crew complement going out.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
No, Commissioner Jones, I support our first responders and anything they ask for that we can give them, I'd like to give them. So I'd like to make a motion to approve all of Chief's recommendations. I'd also like to include the hazmat fee at the same time while we're on it, and however he determines the fee structure on the hazmat fee.
The hazmat fee would be reimbursable for supplies and equipment used, and that is the state's
Okay,
general
I'll add that to my
procedures.
motion.
Second.
All right. Do we need to add an effective date to that motion as well?
Should it be December 23rd, since that's when it?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the recommend. Generally, recommendations are easiest at the beginning of the calendar year, so January 1st would be fantastic.
Yes.
January 1st, I'll add that to my motion.
Alrighty.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept all of Chief's proposals of fee increases or add additions with an effective date of 1 January 2023. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Alrighty, next we have the library, I believe. Margaret, you're up.
Do you want the request or my plea first? So I requested to increase the fees of renting the Ingram room and the deposit to go up from 40 to 50, and the room rental to go up from 20 to 30. Simply because we haven't had a price increase in the 12 years I've been with the city, and I think it's appropriate. We have the events that we have in the Ingram room, about a third of them, we have to go out and clean up after them, and they do not get their deposit back. And that's anywhere from damaging the carpet, to leaving tape on the walls, to leaving the kitchenette in a mess. So they don't get their deposit back. I also think would be appropriate to raise the rental fee to 30. We're still the cheapest gig in town. I called all the hotels. Their fees are, anywhere from $75 to $100, and they rent for a day. I just feel like it's time. I think that it's well within our means to ask this for our public, to provide them this space at this cost.
Great. Any discussion on that piece? We'll break this in half because I know what your plea is.
Yeah, I do have one question.
Sure.
Raising the deposit from 40 to 50, how many deposits would you say, or Leanne, if you know, are forfeited yearly? What?
Paul, I knew you were going to ask that. So I will say that between 2020 and 2022, we didn't have any events.
Right.
In the history of me being at the library, I would say at least a third of all deposits are not returned.
Fair number.
So-
Thank you.
Do you think that $50 is enough of an encouragement for them to actually leave the room? I mean, is $50 going to pay for your labor to clean and replace carpet?
That's hard to say. So we do not rent the room after hours or on Sundays. So if an event is there, if they're having a baby shower that begins at 1, or they rent the room from 1 to 5, and their event is from 2 to 4, let's say, because it takes some time to set up, then people are going to straggle around, and at 4:45, they're going to be rushing around to get out of there by 5. Even though my staff and I encourage them and remind them that they have to be out of there at their intended time. I don't know. It's hard to say, you know, if it's hard to say if that would be an appropriate increase or if people would be willing to pay that. I think we're still the cheapest gig in town. I know we're cheaper than the YRB, right? And I know that before the incident, before the 27 incident, we rented out the Ingram room till all days, including Sunday and Sunday afternoons, and in the evenings on Friday and Saturday nights. And then after the 27 incident, we decided to only rent the room. And at that time, we were able to use the North Annex if we had a double booking. I've stopped doing that. But after the 27 incident, we decided to only rent the room when the library was indeed open.
I have one comment on that. We all know that the purpose of a deposit is to encourage the renter to take care of the facility and be able to cover costs within reason for a shampooing or a repaint or anything like that. I don't think any individual would be upset if they had $100 deposit or $150 deposit that they knew they were going to get back. I think the deposit needs to be enough of an encouragement that they are mindful of the facility that they've been granted.
Right.
And so I think that $50 is way too cheap. Yeah, it's certainly an encouragement for me. If I put a $100 bill down, then I want a $100 bill back if I can. And so it would be my suggestion that you bump it to at least $100.
That sounds a little extreme.
Well, I think-
It's, my reasoning is that they're gonna get that returned.
Right.
And if they don't, then you have the money.
Right.
To be able to, or at least you have some of the money to be able to call the carpet cleaner in.
Right.
Or to buy the paint or whatever, or the hours incurred by your staff to clean that up. And
I
so-
will say that at the end of an event, I have an application fee and then a checkout, an application form and a checkout form. And at the end of the event, the staff member who has assigned them use of the room will go through the room and say, you know, you need to dump your trash, or you need to do your time, or you need to clean the tape off or whatever. But if it's at closing time, they're wanting to get out of there. My staff is wanting to get out of there. So sometimes there are things that are missed, and I will call that person and say, you know, we're not going to give you your deposit back because we found this and this and this left undone.
Well, it seems to me, I agree with Jean, and the rent per hour is not that much. And I mean, only $20 more, they can think, well, I could have rented it for another hour. I don't have to clean this.
True.
So I agree, it should be at least 100, not more.
I kind of agree, because I feel like we're entrusting them with taxpayers' property, and they should return that property in the same manner that it was given to them. And that's very easy to do.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I agree.
Any other discussion, questions?
I was looking at the proposed changes, and I thought it was too low as well, but I was only going to suggest maybe 60 to be equal to 2 hours of renting the room. So maybe 3 hours, maybe 90 reasonable.
Then you mind.
I just think it makes more sense instead of just a flat round number.
Okay.
It's based on a link to something.
That sounds reasonable to me.
I think I agree with the 100.
So, anybody
Do we
wanna-
need to make a
I
motion?
need a motion, yes.
Agree with who, Commissioner?
I make a motion that we
With 100.
approve the rental fee to go up to $30 per hour, but that the deposit be increased to $100.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to increase the rental rate to $30 an hour and have a $100 deposit put down on the Ingram room,
Effective January 1st.
effective 1 January 2023. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, that one passes.
Okay, so now for my plea.
Yes, your plea.
My plea. So let me read something to you from the library director of the American Library Association. Let me find it. The biggest thing we've noticed when we eliminated fines is that we have seen improvement in the overall atmosphere and tone. There's less hesitancy or worry about fines and more of a tendency to engage. So in my years of being in the library world, I keep coming back to the fact that the library, the public library, was established as a free resource for people to receive information, to check out books. The library has become much more than that, and we are an information center. We have people using our computers. We have people needing notaries. We have people wanting study rooms. Our current fine structure is 10 cents a day. They start on the 4th day. We have a 3-day grace period. So the 4th day, they are charged 40 cents. My circulation supervisor sends out a notice on the 2-week mark, and another notice on the 4-week mark, and a final bill notice on the 6th-week mark. Now, I would like to request that we do away with fines. I think people want to return their books when they want to. I see a struggling parent saying, okay, put your library books in this bag and we're going to the library today. Oh, I forgot you have Boy Scouts. Okay, I'll go tomorrow. Oh, wait, I forgot. Yeah, I see that happening all the time. I see fines as being a deterrent to come and use our facility. If a patron has a billed book and they can't get on the computer, they can't check out anything. I don't think fines are an encouragement in any way to be in the library. I think our patrons, this is a scenario I told Megan. So a homeless guy in New York City checks out a book. He has a library card. He's homeless. He checks it out. He can't afford to pay the fine. It's going to be billed to his account. He's not going to pay for it. And we have the same scenario on a relatively much smaller scale in Clovis. We have patrons that check out books. If they could just read them until they're finished, I think they would come back. The Chicago Public Library has 240% return since they have stopped assessing fines. Some of the other things my staff and I have talked about, and I'm more than willing to do something else other than do away with fines, is I could increase the loan period to 3 weeks and then have a grace period of a week. We're going to fall in that same situation, though. We could do a food drive for fines. There's so many things that we could do, but I think in this community, I just asked for more money for the Ingram room. Now I'm just saying I don't want people to pay money. In this day and time, I think people just want to keep their books. And I think, knowing our patrons, I think they'd be responsible to bring them back once they're done without being assessed a fee. And of course, after a certain amount of time, they would be billed for that library book. And if they came in to check out a book or use a computer, they wouldn't be able to, because they would have this assessed on their library card.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
And I could also say this, so the monies we turn into the city every day or every week or every month, for the fine column, we turned in last year $4,100. And that includes fines, lost books, books repaired, books damaged. About 500 of that was lost books. We probably didn't get some of those books back, but I think people would be willing to return their books on their own time.
Great.
I have one question.
Okay.
And I have no problem with not charging. I understand what you're saying, and I agree, actually. But how are you going to, or how long are you going to let them keep them?
We
Before-
would
would you
have to
notify
set,
'em?
like right now, the book is billed 6 weeks after the original due date. So we'd probably bill them in 6 weeks.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
I have a few questions. So when they're billed the book at 6 weeks, if they bring the book back at that point, then they're
All
not
charges are
billed.
dropped.
Okay. So I guess what my thoughts are is, one, what about books that other people want to check out? So if it's a popular book that's, people want to get, then if you don't encourage people to bring them back at a certain time, then no one else can read that book.
Right. That's a good question, Megan. That's a very good question. Let me think of a scenario. So let's say patron A checks out Harry Potter, and then patron B decides he wants it, but patron A doesn't finish it. We would put a recall on that book and tell patron A that book is due. I don't give them 3 or 4 days until they brought it back. If they did not bring it back, the book would probably be billed, and we'd probably have to purchase another copy of that book for patron B.
So then I guess that kind of leads me to my next thought is really those books are the property of the taxpayer.
Right.
And I feel like it's our responsibility to look out for taxpayers' property. And so, go back to a book that maybe the high school kids have to read and that book is checked out because somebody's reading it, but they really need it but they can't. So now the library's having to buy that book again. It's just costing the taxpayers more money.
There's several other ways we can get a person a book. Our interlibrary loan, where we lend and borrow books, we could use that service. If it's like a senior class honors English that's reading some book that everyone has to read, what happens is we will get 6 or 8 copies, and they decide on July 31st that every senior has to read this book. So these kids get this book, and it's going to be overdue, and they don't care. They have to finish this book. So I would go to my interlibrary loan person, and she would request other books to be given to us from other libraries. We also have our Friends of the Library group that has a nice collection of books always to sell. So that'd be a resource we could use.
Okay. My thought also goes along kind of with the same theory that the others were talking about regarding the Ingram room. And it just kind of goes back to respect. It's other people's property, and I feel like they need to respect that property and return it in a timely manner in the same condition that they checked it out. And I feel like if we get rid of fines, then it kind of encourages a lack of disrespect. And that kind of frustrates me about our society today in general. And I know the library book is so petty and little, but it goes along with the theme of what I'm seeing. Right. And, I guess I would rather see you maybe implement and maybe you do, amnesty days.
We do during different times of the year, like National Library Week, during Band Book Week.
So people could, on those time frames, if they see a book, and I've done it too, I found it in a bookshelf or in the floorboard of my car, and I find it later and go, oh my gosh, you can bring it back at that time frame.
Megan, I agree with you that it does show us somewhat of a disrespect for these people to have these books forever. But I think the premise of a public library is to have a free resource and access to information and materials.
But it is free, but we're asking you to be respectful of other people's property.
I do get that, yeah.
So do you think that people would return the book if they were given more time? What is it? Is it 2 weeks still?
2 weeks.
So if they, do you think they don't return it because they're not through with it, or they've just forgotten, or?
It could
do you
be
have any idea?
anything. They could have it in the back of their car. They could have, they aren't finished with it.
But right now, y'all send out a notice after 2 weeks.
Yes, ma'am. And then another notice after 2 more weeks.
Right,
And then
4,
the book
6.
is billed on the 6th week.
And if I'm not mistaken, you said that the New York Library, when they did away with theirs, a 240% return.
Chicago
or
Public.
Chicago Public. I mean,
Some of the
that's
libraries
a pretty big
across,
statistic
right.
to say that we got 240% return on the books. And I don't disagree that, we definitely want them to respect the books and get them turned back in for other patrons to use. But it might be that fee that's, they're like, oh man, now I gotta return this book and I'm gonna have this huge fee. I'm just not gonna take it back versus, oh, I found the book. Oh darn, I gotta get it back to the library as I'm going down there. But 240% return rate is pretty impressive by taking the fees away.
But if they don't return the book, in 6 weeks, they're billed for the book.
Right.
Correct. So
then
if they're
they're
billed for the book, so say I don't return a book, I get billed $25. I can't come check anything else out until I pay
Correct.
the $25.
Or you bring
Or
the
bring
book
the
back.
book
Or
back.
bring the book back.
Or you bring
But
the book
still,
back.
to me, it's frustrating for the person who's waiting for that book. And I've been that person waiting for, a new bestseller, and I have no idea when it's going to be there.
Right.
And so I feel like we're equally frustrating another group of people by not giving incentive to return that book.
Right. I can understand that, Megan. When I'm talking about collection development and we're talking, let's say James Patterson, for example, I'm going to get 2 copies in print, 1 copy in large type, 1 audio copy, 2 digital copies on ebook, and 2 audio. So so in terms of having to wait, there's lots of avenues for a patron to take to get a copy of the book.
I think that when we talk about making people responsible for the facility and increasing the deposit, I think it goes hand in hand
Okay.
of making people responsible. You're not requiring a deposit for the book.
No, that's true.
You're giving them the opportunity to read it and return it without a fine. So really, the onus is on them
Right, right.
to return it, and all they have to do is come back in 2 weeks and recheck it out, right?
Or call. They can call.
So really,
Yeah. I mean, I see that. I just think
hold people responsible for being good stewards of our community,
True.
including our books.
I see that, Mrs. Farkas,
Then
I
I
do.
think we need to make them accountable
I
to
do
return it in
see
a
that.
timely manner.
Yeah, my premise just goes back to the fact that the library was established as a free environment for learning.
And it still is.
You're just asking
But
to
if
follow a rule.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If we're going to hold partygoers to a standard of taking
True.
care of the facility, and they have to pay the deposit up front.
True.
And that's under the assumption that they're going to do damage, and they don't, then of course
Right,
they get it
right.
back. I think that the same holds true
okay.
to the books.
I can
as
see
well.
that.
I have a comment. I think book fines have been around for, ever since libraries have been open. And there's a reason that they did that.
Yeah, but I honestly believe they are a deterrent of people coming into the library.
I have a comment. It's an intriguing idea. But I am also in agreement with you. You have to have something has to encourage them to bring it back. The 6-week billing or for the
Right.
non-return book. What if that was done on a much stricter level rather than a 6-week wait? If you don't return it in 2 weeks, you're going to get billed for the book, and you can return the book back. Would that be? Do you feel like that would encourage that person? I'd love
I
to hear
would
from
think,
everybody.
I
else.
feel that's kind of harsh only because I have checked out books with kids before, and they do disappear in the house sometimes. But normally, if you give it a little time, it'll appear. So I hate to
Yeah, if they can't
discourage
return it, yeah.
people from
Weeks,
6
yeah.
weeks. If I haven't found it in 6 weeks, it's gone. But
I think what he's saying is if they bring the book, if they get billed at 2 weeks, if they bring it back at week 4, as I understand it now, if they hand that book in, all's
Yeah,
good.
everything's gone. Yes.
So
But
if
if
that
we-
book,
but if we
if they
bill
billed
it-
you at 2 weeks,
But if we bill it
If you
2
brought it back
weeks,
up-
they can't check out another book, they can't use the computers, they can't do anything in the library, essentially. And so while mom or dad is trying to find the book, they might be hindering the learning of that child from checking out another book, right? And so, the 6 weeks seems kind of reasonable to me as well, because I've been in the same boat where Caitlin, where'd you put the book? And now we're looking for the book, right? And so, I think the 6 weeks is probably reasonable to bill a book.
Yeah, I see Mrs. Farkas's and Commissioner Paula's viewpoint, and I understand we must hold people accountable and patrons accountable. In the years I've been the library director here, it's been like there big overhaul of trends going on in the library, and doing away with the fines. Doing away with the fines is the prominent push of public libraries today, because they believe, libraries in general, medium or large libraries believe that having fines is a deterrent to having patrons.
Do these other
So-
libraries now bill for the book after 6 weeks?
They do. It
Ever what?
depends, Mrs. Farrell. It depends on. It depends. They may bill them, and where that money goes is a million
Yeah.
different places. They may require them to buy a book and bring it in. They may. I've heard of some libraries, saying if you cannot find this book and pay for it, if you bring 2 movies in, we will eliminate your fines.
What do you think if you didn't do a fine, but you wrote the letter to bill the book in, like, say, 4 weeks? I think 2 weeks is too soon, because a lot of people don't have every day to read, maybe.
Right.
But would 4 weeks and then bill for the book? I mean, that would still get them back in sooner than 6.
4 weeks would be fine. And
How many people actually pay for the book after you, like, let's say they don't bring it back and you bill them? How many people are we talking about, and how many people actually pay that bill?
unfortunately, so we have a fairly new library system, so I cannot track that data for probably another 6 months. I can tell you that and we've had this new system for a little over a year, but we don't have enough data built up to make sure that we can find out how many people have had the book and then gone through the whole process of being billed. Does that make sense? If I could revisit this, in 2 years. But of the 4,000 that we turned into the city last year, 400 was in billed books.
In billed books. So how many people, do a lot of people actually come and pay their fines for these books?
They come and pay they will come and want to pay their fines, but because very few people carry cash anymore, they'll return their book, and then there'll be and their fines will stop. But the next time they come and check out books, they'll say, "Yeah, I know I owe 50 cents. I don't have it. Can I check out a book?" You can check out one. I don't have it. Can I check out one more? So it's that story, on and on and on and on, because people are handling less and less cash.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, and we'll definitely get the library set up with card capabilities. Once again, they may be paying $3 for a 50-cent fine because they choose not to have cash on them, but I think that's a reality that we all face these days when using our credit cards or debit cards. One question that I have for Ms. Henchy, and Margaret and I have discussed this, and she knows where I stand on this topic. But one question that I do have for you, so if you're not charging fines and somebody has to eventually own the book, we basically put a hold on their account till where they can't use any of our other services until they pay for that book, correct? Which
the
what would be
library
proposed,
services, yeah.
correct? And so right now, we charge fines on the book up to the value of that book.
Correct.
Well, we put a hold on their account until they either pay those fines or pay us the value of the book also, correct?
Correct.
And so, I guess in my mind, what is the difference? They can't use our library whether the book is out or they've paid the fines.
Well, I think what she's saying is that she feels that the fines are a deterrent from new patrons coming in and using the library and getting more use within the library. And that's what she is concerned about.
Right.
So my thought is that we're already doing the fines. She's already recognized that it might be a problem. And she has gone out to other libraries and found out that they're doing away with their fines. This could be something simple that we could do for a trial period, until the revenue committee meets again. And if she finds that she's not getting the return on the books that she was anticipating, we could always reinstate the fines at that point in time.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
So, Ms. Hinchy, I know every department in the city runs on a shoestring budget. Just practically speaking, last year you received $5,100 in fines. So if we eliminate that, where are you going to come up with the difference in budget?
And just, Mr. Hochwald has asked me that too. And again, I think my premise is that the public library should be a free place for people to come and check out books. Yeah, and keep them until they're finished.
But I know.
I
think it is free.
I get it. Commissioner Paul, I get it.
I think
Commissioner
expanding-
Paula, that would come from general fund. It would just increase their transfer.
Okay.
And we're increasing the Ingram room fees. I see both sides of the issue. I'm just trying to be, maybe in my golden years of being a library director, I'm just trying to be a kinder, more gentler director. Other libraries are doing it. They've had tremendous success. I don't know what their loss ratio is. I don't know if they still are having, issues with people not returning books. I don't know that. All I read is the data that tells me how wonderful it is not to charge fines.
I think we are a kinder, gentler place. I mean, you charge a 10-cent a day fine after 2 weeks and 3 days. If they keep it the full 6 weeks, that's what, $2.50?
No, it's 10 cents. It starts on the 4th day, 10 cents per day.
After the 2 weeks and 4
No,
days?
after the 4 days. They get 3 days grace period, then the fines begin 10 cents per day.
So you're at 2 weeks and 4 days before you charge a penny, because from the day they took the book. So if I checked the book out today, 2 weeks and 4 days from now is when I'd start being fined if I didn't
And
return it.
you'd be charged 40 cents on that 4th day, and then 50 cents the next day, and 60 cents the next
Not
day.
if you call and ask to have it 2 more weeks.
That's what I said. I can also call and ask to extend it. I could come in and ask you to extend it. I think we go above and beyond, and I think the fines are minimal. And actually, I think they need to be higher, but that's just me. A little bit of personal responsibility. But again, if they kept it the full 6 weeks before you build the book, that fine is like $2.50, right?
No, because we build them for the price of the book.
So if I kept it 5 weeks and 5 days, so if I turned it in 2 days before, my fine would be $2.40.
No, it would be,
Or $2.30.
because the 4th day you'd be charged 40 cents, the 5th day 50 cents, the 6th day 60 cents,
So
the
it's 60,
7th.
so it goes up per day, so it's 40
Yes, it
cents a
goes
day,
up
then
10
50.
cents per day after the 3rd day, yes.
Right. That's what I'm, so it only goes up 10 cents a day. So the first day that I have a fine on the book, it's 10 cents, right?
No, the first
40
day
cents,
after
sorry.
the 3rd day is 40 cents.
So
It accumulates, right? So
It
the next day-
accumulates.
So it'd actually would it be 50 cents or 90 cents that they would owe? On the 5th day, it's 50
On
cents,
the 5th
right?
day,
On
they
the day
would
it's
be
50
charged
cents.
50, they'd be charged.
So again, if I kept that book 5 weeks and 5 days, so not quite your 6 weeks, it would be a $2.30 fine, somewhere around there. Forgive me for doing math. I think that's quite reasonable to ask you to return our property in a timely manner.
What's the cost of the book generally?
Oh, man.
I mean, is it $10? Is it, I mean, let's go with paperback versus hardback. So,
A mass market
Bucks.
paperback that you're gonna pick up at a drugstore is gonna cost $5 to $10. A trade paperback that are those bigger size, they're gonna cost anywhere from $15 to $20. Children's book's gonna cost anywhere from $20 to $30. A hardback print book's gonna run us about $35 to $40 each.
so at the end of that to Paul's point, at the end of that 6 weeks, you've accumulated in fines about the same amount as the cost of the book.
Half the cost, right?
Not even
Well,
half.
Not even half.
Because if it's.
Yes.
$5 wouldn't even be half of it.
Right.
And then if they don't bring it, you're right, Paul, if they don't, you're right, 5 weeks and 5 days.
But then if I bring it back, so if I bring it back 19 months later, what happens?
You're gonna be charged the,
Price of the book.
if you bring it back 19 months later and it's in good shape, we're gonna waive all your fees.
So actually,
So, because all we want is a book back.
I'm incentivized not to return it and keep it longer.
I mean,
I think what we need to think about is we are supposed to be encouraging people to read, which a lot of people do not read anymore, and especially young people.
true.
You know. So I don't know, Margaret probably knows more about what the facility needs or what would help or not. I'm not sure, like, if we wait 6 weeks, we could maybe do the 4-week, but my feeling is encourage people to read, and if she thinks it's not charge fines, and we could look at it again later, like she said.
The fines are to encourage the return. The billing for the book is also to encourage the return. As I said earlier, I am intrigued by the idea, and I think there's a way to do it, but I think it needs to be maybe 3 weeks after the book was due. You send it's billed. If in 45 days from that billing, it's still not returned, and then the billing is final.
Right.
And then don't let the billing go to 2 years or to 3 months or whatever. Make the billing final.
The billing is final. Once that book is billed, the price of the fine does not increase.
So what I'm saying is you're saying if they return the book, you send them a bill for the book, and they return the book, you're waiving the bill. Don't waive the bill after a certain amount of time. If in 3 weeks or 4 weeks after the due date, you send the bill, you send the bill, and then they have 30 days from that billing to return the book. If they don't return it in the 30 days, that billing is final. Even if they return the book, they owe the money.
I think that would deter them from using our facility, actually.
Yeah, I think that'd be
Well,
worse.
and
worse than
why-
what we
why-
currently have.
It's
Yeah.
no different than the deterring of them.
Yeah, but if they
incurring
return the book, they're
fines.
gonna say, why am I having to pay this fine? I returned the book.
And I want to keep the book if I paid for it.
I
and you
think-
didn't
And I wanna keep
waive
the
it.
book if I'm gonna pay for it.
I think if that's the case, then I don't think that you change. I think it should just stay where it's at.
Okay.
That would be what I think.
I'm kind
Yeah,
of conflicted here, Margaret, because you know my wife.
I know.
Librarian.
I know.
And we've had this discussion before this meeting today, and she's in agreement with you. Me, on the other hand, these fines have been around
Forever and
forever.
ever.
Why are we talking about trying to get rid of them now?
Simply
thought
because it's a
process.
trend,
But
it's this movement of
is
going
it-
across the public library world
Yeah,
that,
she researched, and it is a trend.
so, let me tell you, this is the silliest story you'll ever hear. So I had this young man, Adzia, in 5th grade, and he checked out this book called Charlie and His Dog. At the end of 5th grade, I said, you owe me this book. And he said, no, Miss Hinch, I didn't take it out. At the end of 6th grade, no, Miss Hinch, I never took it out. About 2 years ago, he comes into the library and says, here's Charlie and his dog. I found in my my room, do you want me to pay Zia for this book? Do you want to take this book? I'm like, no, just keep it. But he was so concerned that he owed this great big fine for all these millions of years that he had had this book lost.
But he had a responsibility.
Yeah.
So
He's
don't
also one
take
of
it
my
away.
favorite
And my
students.
opinion is don't take that responsibility away.
So
That's just my opinion.
Okay.
my 2 cents is we have now 2 librarians that are saying the exact same things and other professionals in the field. They're coming to us with a recommendation to do away with the fines because they feel it's going to be better for the library itself. And they're the ones that work in this field every single day. That's just my 2 cents.
But I think we have the responsibility to figure out where the extra $5,100 is going to come from, because it's going to come from some other budget, and it's not fair for them to take it out of their, I know it's coming from the general fund, but that $5,100 will be used for something at the park, or, I
But
mean,
actually-
Russell's nodding his head right there.
Actually, that $5,100 loss is actually higher, right? Because you're out the books that aren't in that.
Right.
We're just talking fines that are actually paid.
True.
Well, it was for books too, or damaged.
Well, the ones that aren't returned, that $5,100, what about the ones that people don't pay?
What's that?
The ones that people don't pay for. They don't come in and pay their fine. They don't pay for them.
Yeah, what's the outstanding
About
fine
the book.
balance?
What, Paul?
What's the outstanding fine balance?
For each person is different. depending
No, for
on-
the entire library.
Oh, I don't have any idea. And I can't, you know, because our system is so new, it'll probably take me another 6 months to generate that data. I can have Scott tell you how many books are currently overdue, and I could have run that report this morning. I can't tell you, I could probably run a report that shows how many have been billed as well.
Could we do this and with the expectation that we have a report that shows what the increase was, what the loss of books were,
Okay?
how many books were returned under this deal, and if it proves that it's too expensive for the city to do that, then we can pull that and say we'll go back to the old model. Is that a
2
possibility?
years later?
Yeah,
And
the next time with the revenue committee meets is 2 years, right?
Does that
Karen,
have to
what
be
we could
through?
do is
We do 1 year?
you can make any recommendations that you so choose. What I was going to add is that if Ms. Hinchy can pull the reports of how many books are currently outstanding, and I would say that we should definitely be able to track down how much is currently outstanding in fines owed to the city of Clovis, and provide, and we could honestly table this particular item. And while we've talked about trying to get through this process, but if this is clearly a discussion item.
Yes.
And needing more information. And so this particular item, we could table and then have another meeting to where you have some more information in order to make a decision.
I'll make that motion to table until another revenue
I'll
review committee.
second that motion.
I have a motion and a second to table this discussion for a future meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Have some
Aye.
discussion?
Oh,
I wanted to ask if you're gonna, collect all that information, is there a way that you can tell, probably not, how many books were actually billed and then returned, and so all fees were waived? Because really, right now, if somebody comes in 10 days, and they pay they're 10 days late, so they owe, what, $10? But if they kept that book longer and you billed them, say, $10, if they brought the book in, they don't have to pay anything, but that other person that brought theirs in after 10 days had to pay $1. But, I mean, how many books did you bill that you didn't actually get paid for? They returned the book. I don't know if that's possible with
I'm
your
sure
system.
it is possible, yeah.
Yeah. That's just more information. If we're gonna table it, that we might
no, that's
think about.
valid.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be glad to get that information for you.
Other
Is
discussion?
there a date you would like this?
We'll set that for the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, so when we get to the end, we'll set the next meeting, more than likely a couple weeks out.
Okay.
Any other further discussion? Alrighty. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Alrighty, we'll table that one. Alrighty, next we have the municipal court, Judge Kelly.
Thank you. I had gone to the city and asked if we could possibly raise the city's court automation fund. We have several different fees that we collect on. In 1993, state legislature decided that every court had to be automated, but they didn't give any ways to do it. So as a New Mexico Judges Association came up with a court automation fee committee. And so to do that, we had to have a fee. And so that's how these fees became, it's when we started collecting on them. Because we are home rule, we have two fees. We have a state court automation fee that we collect, and it goes off to the state of New Mexico. And it goes into a fund, and all the municipal judges or municipal courts in New Mexico pull from this fund, and it pays for court automation. It pays for computers, fax machines, copiers. It pays for software programs. It pays for training, and it takes care of the municipal courts. And we have a $6 fee. However, we all know that funding has gone down. And so the court automation funding for New Mexico courts, municipal courts, has also gone down. And we have been self-sufficient in our funding because we collect the two fees, the one that goes off to the state and the one that we keep here. The one that stays in-house for the city of Clovis, we've always been able to maintain and pay our fees for our software programs and order little things that we need. When we have a big purchase where we order our equipment, our computers and everything like that, then we will ask for reimbursement. However, since funding throughout the state has gone down, those are going to be very, very limited. So I know just through the past year, and I know this is across the board, and I don't want to point fingers, but because there are less violations being issued, because it's been a hard time during the pandemic that we've had, there's less violations being issued. So we're collecting less. So my way of trying to keep us self-sufficient is to bring our $6 fee that we collect for the city in-house up to $10. Add an additional $4. And then as I was looking at this, it has been 20 plus years since we've actually raised fees on traffic violations. And so if we're going to ask for court automation, this might be a good time to be looking at that as well. However, across the state, the AOC, the Office of the Courts, just as I began this program to try to get some data and to try to find a little bit of additional money, they are going to be asking the legislature for more money and to try to do away with all funds, all fees, so there won't be any fees collected. And so I don't know where we're going to be on that in the next 4 to 5 years. It'll probably take that long for them to figure it out. And so fees may completely go away. But they're asking for money only for the state courts and not the municipalities. And so somewhere in there, they're still trying to figure things out. The Municipal League is working with us, and with the Municipal Judges Association. They know what's going on and how important these fees are to the courts and for what we collect. So I just kind of did a little bit of breakdown of what we collect. We have right now we have a $41 correction fee on every violation that comes through our office. There's a $20 fee, and that fee is usually used for the housing of prisoners to help pay for that. Doesn't pay for the whole amount, it just helps in that funding. The court automation that we send off to the state, and then we have a city court automation that's in a special fund that we only use for in-house court automation. There is a traffic safety fee of $6, and that goes to the PD, and they use it for training. They can use it for uniforms, anything that they need extra. There is a $3 judicial education fee, and that goes to the Judicial Education Center. They are responsible for training all courts and judges in the state of New Mexico. However, the AOC is trying to get rid of them as well. So in the next 4 to 5 years, there may be some changes coming down the road. I don't know. So all I really am asking for is the $4. If you guys want to raise traffic violations any higher than what they already are, there's a $41 fee right now. I'm asking it to go to $45. Most traffic violations are $30. So if you get a ticket for running a red light, right now you're going to pay $71. $30 of it's going to be for the fine, and $41 of it's going to be for the court automation, or for the fees.
So currently, we're at $30 for the fine.
For most fines. There are a few variables
On
that are a little
average.
bit higher, but if you came up with a dollar amount, we could just raise everything through a dollar amount.
And as I read this, the 12 courts that responded, their fines ranged from $25 to $75.
Right.
And you're wanting to go from 30 to 35, or add $5 per fine?
I suggested that, and then that's when we were brought before your committee. So I'm going to go with whatever you want. But I want to remind you that the court is not a money-making institute. So that is not what I have to base my judgments on how much money we make. So that's not coming from me to make more money. It has to come from the city.
And Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, and this is something that the judge and I had discussed, and our thought process, and what actually really surprised me was when she said traffic fines have not increased in over 20 years.
Right.
And when you start looking at, I want to say this, what state police charges for a speeding ticket versus what the sheriff's office charges for a speeding ticket from a fine standpoint, theirs are significantly higher than what the city of Clovis charges. So if you're within the city limits and you get, which remind me what the state police charges, do you remember? Off the top of your head?
Most state fees are $100 plus. So ours is $41, but theirs are right around $100 to $105 just for the fees. That doesn't include their the fine. That's just their fees.
And so Citizen A, within the city limits, gets pulled over by state police, they pay one cost. They get pulled over by the sheriff's office, they pay a different cost. Or they get pulled over by the city of Clovis PD, they pay the least amount of cost between the three organizations. And that's when I started thinking, it's like, wait a minute, granted, we're not, the judge is not in the business, and our court system is not in the business of generating revenues. It's just from a equality standpoint, when you're looking at, great, today I got pulled over as a citizen by a state police versus getting pulled over by the Clovis PD, and just using fines as a deterrent per se, and not as a revenue maker.
Which is what it's intended to do in the
Yes.
first place. Do we have any idea what the state police fine is?
I'm going to tell you, because as I started this, I did not want to involve the state police or the magistrates or the sheriff's office into this study because they're wanting to get rid of us. The state wants to do away with municipal courts and only have a one-court system. And so that's the goal. And so I didn't pursue that end of it. I only pursued what other municipality
Okay, that's fair.
did.
But, and while we don't have the number, we do know that they're higher.
Certainly.
Much higher.
Much.
Yes. For instance, a no insurance ticket for municipal court's gonna be right around $156. $41 is the fee, $105 is the fine. If you go through the state of New Mexico, you're gonna be paying at least $300 for that same violation.
Gotcha.
I have a couple questions.
Absolutely.
So Judge Kelly, the $4 that you're asking for court automation, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that enough money to give you what you need, the supplies you need?
I think it will be if things don't continue to go as they are.
Okay.
But it may need to be changed later on down the road.
Okay.
I'm trying to be frugal because that is what my job entails me to do, and to not make citizens pay more than they really need to. That's not my
Absolutely.
job, but that can be your job.
Well, but I appreciate that, and very much so. But I also want to make sure you have the tools you need to do your job.
Absolutely.
And this other question is probably for Leanne. So the fines, say the $30 fine for a traffic ticket, does that go in the general fund or does that go in police and fire?
The fine goes into general fund. So the $4 city court automation that she's talking about increasing is in a designated account.
For the court.
Specific for the court. The same with the traffic safety fee that the police department gets. That's just stays and then just builds over time. So obviously if there's a major project, then she's going to ignore it for a while until she builds up enough funds.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir. Judge Kelly, are any of the current fees that we're charging, are they set? They're set by the city, they're not set by state. So the judicial education fee, there's not something we must pay for that, or?
$3 is the set judicial education fee, and it goes off, it is sent off to the state. And the $6 court automation fee is set by the state, and it goes off as well.
Anyone else?
So it's better to be pulled
Yes, I
over
have a
by
question.
the city police than it is the state police.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to ask the judge. Yeah, so I'm not really too concerned about the fine amount, encouraging, the police department to pull people over more to, generate revenue if it's not going directly to the police department. If it's going to the public, general fund, I think that's reasonable. But I guess the real question is, Judge, do you think the current fine amounts are a deterrent?
For some people, I would say yes. For other people, I would say no. But as I look at it across the board, and we have, I'm kind of like the library over here, okay? I want them to be responsible, people to be responsible for their actions, but I don't want to fine people that cannot afford to be fined. I don't want it to be so difficult that a senior citizen who is on a fixed income can't eventually pay off their fine. Right now, if I have a senior citizen come in and we do payment plan, you can make payments of $25 every 2 weeks, or you can do $50 once a month. It's the same thing, only one's going to be easier for a senior citizen who is on a fixed income to just pay once a month than it is for somebody who's working and just wants to pay as they go.
On the fine schedule, would it be possible to perhaps target increases instead of just doing 5 across the board?
What was that again, Isaac?
Rather than applying an additional $5 to all fines, would it be possible to target them to certain fines, like for certain violations, rather than just applying it across the board? Like maybe it's more reasonable to add it to certain instead of all of them.
The maximum fine that municipal court can charge is $500 and up to 90 days in jail. But that's not what we find on a normal traffic violation. I mean, you would charge that amount on an arrestable offense, like leaving the scene, reckless driving. Those are arrestable offenses that we would possibly charge up to that amount.
And I would be a little concerned with this committee setting what is, what crime warrants an increase and what crime doesn't warrant an increase, right? I mean, I'd be hesitant for us to set that precedent, to say the speeding in a school zone versus, speeding on the regular road. That's not really for us to set, right? I think it would be, if we're going to increase, I would recommend that we increase as a whole, not just specific, because, I mean, we'd have to go through all the traffic violations that there is, and we'd have to take each one of those and weigh those, and I'm not sure we want to do that through this committee.
I'm not sure that's a good idea for anybody outside of I just don't think that's a good idea at all, to be the ones to determine how egregious that fine should be. I'm in favor of increasing the fine. I'm a pretty competitive guy. I don't like to be last in anything, and I don't want to be last in the fine category. My dad said something to me when I was young quite a bit. He says, the fire won't have to teach you twice not to stick your hand in it. Meaning that the lessons that burn or sting are the ones that you'll try to avoid in the future. And so we have, from a traffic standpoint, I see it daily. People blatantly running red lights, people speeding, people crossing over double yellows for whatever reason. And something has to sting, and I don't want it to be an accident. I don't want somebody to get injured. Help curb the actions of the driver, me included. I want that. I want it to sting. I don't look at it as a revenue source, but I do look at it as a deterrent, and I'm all for increasing the fines across the board. The question for me would be is how much, and I would love some feedback on that.
My feedback would be to double it to 60.
So increase it
Because
across the board by 30.
we haven't increased it in 20 years.
We haven't increased since Judge Muffley
And we're
was
way
in.
behind what the county and state's doing. And I don't think 60's unfair.
Is there a way for us to find out like what the sheriff's department's fine is? I mean, I'm not looking to outrun the sheriff's department in that category, and I'm not looking to try to be the state police's.
The sheriff's
fine.
department is gonna be the same as what the state police is. Because they're funded through the state.
Okay.
So the sheriff's office, the state police, they're gonna be the same cost.
Did you say it was like 100 and
Well, that's for the fees, right?
That's
not
just for the
fine.
fees, yes.
fees?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're not,
But
we're
not
trying to
not
determine
one
the
set
fine,
traffic
yeah.
fine,
Right.
okay.
And this proposal is a $5 increase for the fines and a $4 for the court fees, correct?
I was just being very frugal. And the
whatever-
$4 was what I really wanted. But while I was asking, I thought, well, we should probably raise the fines as well. So I'm open to whatever the committee.
So to
Or the
Jean's
city.
point, do we want to?
It's the cities.
Once again, gather more data, probably table this one until the next meeting so that we can get what the, state and sheriff's office charge. as
I
far
would
as
agree
fines.
with, I would agree with that.
And I'm happy to,
Clear
I'm
on
happy to
what you
reach out
wanna-
and get that information.
Table.
I can get that information, but you need to be a little specific. What are you looking for? Because they're gonna be so different. Are you looking just for speeding? You looking for red light? Are you looking, I mean, are there certain,
There's lots of different fines, I think is what Judge Kelly's saying. It's not just like a speeding ticket. She's requesting that we go up $5 on all types.
right?
That they.
Right,
that
so
the
if you're
municipal-
wanting that data, I may not be able to find that, I mean,
Yeah.
I still
I
think,
want to be able to find it, but
I still think that $5 increase is too low, because we haven't increased it in 20 years.
I would agree.
I understand.
But I still think we can get, I mean, we're talking about a general fine of $30 is what you're bringing to us today. I think we could still get that on the state police side,
So-
is where we say what, does that make sense, Justin?
Now,
And so, yeah, we can go out and definitely, and what we can do is pull you a sample, not every fine that's out there. And we could probably pull the most common ones from a traffic violation standpoint, from speeding to red light tickets to,
Probably the easiest thing would be to pull the penalty assessment. A penalty assessment is where you sign and you just say you're gonna pay it, and it just goes automatically, you have to pay automatically, you don't get to see a judge. On those, they're gonna be pretty set through magistrate, through municipal, those are set fees. So everybody knows the fee for that. Those would probably be the easiest for us to pull. But if you wanted specific ones other than that, you would have to be specific with me as to what you're looking for.
now, you had said something though originally, you didn't want to go to other, because they're trying to do away with the municipal.
That is correct.
So I don't think we want to,
For the pot?
conflict that either. So whatever you could maybe get that won't do that.
Well, I
Mr. Chairman,
think-
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Mr. Holwell can take care of
Yeah.
that for us
Okay.
and leave the
Well, I just don't
municipal
want the
courts out of it.
judge to, since she mentioned that.
I think that Justin's already said he could do that pretty easily and leave the municipal court system out of it. so-
Okay, that's fine then.
Are the
So-
court fees
I'll make that motion to table
consistent?
till the next meeting. Oh, sorry.
Are the court fees set for each ticket? Like, is that, or is it on a sliding scale as well, depending on what the ticket is for? Like, on the state level, if, like you said, it might start at $50 for that ticket, but it could go up from there. Are the court fees, are they on a sliding scale as well, or are they set?
Court fees are pretty much set for municipal courts, unless you're a home rule. If you're a home rule, we have a few extra fees that we collect, but for the most part, the only fees collected throughout the state are $29. So, Texaco, Melrose, Portales, they're just gonna collect a $20 fee.
Okay.
But they're still gonna collect that $30 fine. But their fee can only go that high. Now, magistrate courts, the sheriff's office, their fees are set as well, but they have additional fees that we don't collect. They have brain injury fees, they have facility fees, they have retirement fees, and they have pretty much feed people a lot, to where we're just very basic on our fees through the municipal courts.
All right, great, thank you.
Make that motion to table till the next meeting.
All right, I have a motion to table. Have a second?
Second?
All right, any further discussion? All's in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, we will table that one until the next meeting. All right, last but not least, and also the longest one. Mr. Hooper with our parks.
Good evening. How y'all doing today? Hopefully I'll keep it simple for you. I tried to write it big so I could read it and I still can't. We want to go through them one at a time, I'm assuming, and, okay. Currently we have event fees, bleacher rental fees and stage rentals. Currently the bleachers are $50 a day, stages are $150. And then our trash cans, it says vary by size. What I'm requesting is to bump the bleachers up by 50% and the stage up by 100. And then trash cans, we only have one size of the red trash can. So we just like to set those at $3. The price would include setup and delivery, takedown pickup during normal working hours. Where we've had some issues is they want us to pick one up on Saturday or set one up on Saturday. Well, then I gotta bring 4 guys in on overtime, minimum 2.5 hours. Now I've just paid $250 to rent a $150 stage. It's really eating us up. Last year, we also had to replace the tires on the stage, just wear and tear. Well, there was 300 some odd bucks that we'll never recoup. There is continual wear and tear on all these products, and at some point, they're gonna have to be replaced. So just trying to get some of that in. The other thing I'd like to request is anything outside of additional hours, like the Saturdays, be charged $15 a man hour. That's not a full compensation, because overtime's more than that with all the others. Same thing, working an event would be charged at $30 an hour per man. Where that works is, working event is always overtime. So we had, let's say, a gearhead gathering or some of these others that I gotta have guys driving around emptying trash cans all day long. That's where that comes into play.
All right. Do we want to listen to the entire presentation or vote as we go?
Get me over it once, or?
I suggest we whittle it down and vote as we go.
Okay. So any discussion on the event fees?
What kind of events are we talking?
They can be anything from, like I said, the gearhead gathering, which is Dragging Main, part of that, some of those events. Desert Cruisers might have us come out and set some stuff up. There's sometimes things on Main Street. There are, I believe, 4 events that are covered under the city, such as Prayer Day and a few others that would not be, those are fee waived. But if an individual, the Elks Lodge recently decided they wanted to do an event and they wanted a stage out there.
Is the 4th of July, is the 4th of July a waived event?
Smoke on the water?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions?
I don't want to, I know we've been here a while, but additional $15 per man hour outside normal hours, and then working an event would be charged at $30 a man hour. I'm not sure I see the difference in the two. I mean, it's all gonna be both of those are gonna be after hours. So what would you do? I mean, I'm just trying to clarify what event
Okay, and I
is
guess where
gonna
I was
be at
going with there is,
$15 an hour.
so if they're paying the $250 for the stage rental, which would cover us under normal hours, but now you want us to do it outside. So I'm adding, what I already had $15 figured in
I see.
for normal hours, so I added 15 onto it,
Okay.
as opposed to just something out of the blue.
So if they come out on a weekend and set the stage up, you're gonna charge them $250 plus the $15 a man hour to set it up and then come back and tear it down?
Correct. If they don't want it taken down till Monday, then the ending fee would be on regular hours.
Gotcha.
If they needed
Which
it
is
set up
encompassed
Sunday
in the-
morning and Sunday night, then
Right, which the normal duty hours is covered in the $250.
correct.
Okay.
So
to think
do you
why
have
I
any
did that.
idea what your loss was on these events, or how much, I mean, your revenue was on events last year and the expense of them, or anything?
Really don't know. That was just not something that
We don't track that.
track it. For each individual event, a person will request what they want, and then we have an event form that we fill out. 10 trash cans, $30, bleachers, 150, things along those lines. But as far as tracking that, no.
Okay. Any other
That
questions?
is actually something that, through our new software system and our implementation of that, trying to actually track our actual costs as they tie to events, that we're planning to get there. We just haven't have that system fully implemented at this point. But I can tell you that minimum wage has increased, and this doesn't, no matter what it is, that doesn't cover it.
Mr. Hooper, I have one, I was looking through this, I was looking for something specific, and I don't see it on there indirectly because I'm involved with Dragon Main. Can you tell us again what the charge is to rent the park like our Dragon Main Gearhead Gathering does? Do you know what that number?
There's a zero fee on renting the park. So basically, we just set it up as an event request, we approve it. So you rent, so Dragon Main, I don't think technically rents it, but like Gearhead Gathering, which is part of that same.
Right.
So there's not a fee to rent it. If you wanted bleachers, if you wanted the stage, then those would be individual items, but the park in general, no.
And so unless there's a park fee, so for that particular event, it's open to the public. And so we don't charge an event fee for something that is open to the public. If it's a private event and you wanted to court off a section of the park, then there is certain fees that would apply.
Okay.
All right.
All righty then.
Any other questions?
I'm going to move for approval. I only ask that you clarify the last two sentences because they're confusing.
Okay.
I think the public would be confused. I'm kind of confused, but I understand the explanation.
Okay.
So a motion to accept the recommendation on event fees to take effect 1 January 2023. Do I have a second?
Second?
All right, I have a second. Is there any further discussion?
I just have one question. Russell, you're comfortable that that covers your costs to deploy those?
No.
It doesn't cover
No,
it.
of course not. Yeah, but this is also a process, and I understand that. I don't think most of these requests, I don't think have been made in revenue review for years. Back to the same thing, 20-year fee. Well, I tried to catch up all 20 years.
You wouldn't
We
get there.
never get it passed.
Or we
so.
could get there, but don't know if
Do
we'd
it,
make
Christian.
Process, yeah.
I'll speak as the Parks and Rec chairman. The Parks and Rec department is not a money-making department.
I agree, but it should at
statement.
least break even.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All righty. Got one down. Super.
Sorry about that. So on to my second one, the aquatics fees. I'm requesting that the fees just basically remain the same on all the entry fees. I'd like to do a locker rental of $10 a month. We do have some of our people that come in and do, like a monthly pass or punch passes. And they do want to rent a locker so they can throw their gym shoes, stuff like that. This would not apply to either the swim team or the swim club. We're going to work out separate agreements with them where they have their locker space. This is for individuals, private citizens that are just wanting to swim. Just to have the opportunity to say, yeah, you can keep a locker here, put your own lock on it, $10 a month, that sort of thing. We're requesting the rental fee on the pool. Currently, the rental fee is $95 for the first hour and a half. And then it bumps to the second hour, or the second 30 minutes, another 35. So it's 2 hours at 130. I would like to just bump it up to 150. And then currently the fees are set up to where we can only rent out the aquatic center. I would like to be able to do aquatic center, potter pool, or the splash pad. If you want to pay $150, 2 hours, we can rent it to you. We'll have certain times and windows open. But yeah, and that way we want to set fees, set time, not, well, I need it 2 hours and 15 minutes, or I need it now. Set fee, set time, which kind of covers our costs. I'm also requesting that we remove all memberships. Currently, we have 10 or 12 memberships, it feels like. We have a 6 months aerobics membership. We have a 6 month 60+ aerobics membership. We don't even offer aerobics anymore. We have a 6 month family membership. We have a 6 month family membership plus an extra family member, but the family's not even defined. So we don't know if that's 4 people or what, then you have single memberships. So we just like to do away with all the memberships. We still have a punch pass system. What I'm requesting on that is an expiration on punch passes for 6 months. Currently, there is no expiration date. So we have people that have gotten punch passes that are 2 and 3 years old, and our card catalog is getting awful big of punch passes. So we just like to have the opportunity to cancel them at the end of 6 months. So you can get like a 10 punch pass, which will get you 10 passes in. Well, at a certain point in time, you need to use them or lose them, I guess is kind of what I'm requesting, if that makes sense.
I'd be concerned about that one. I mean, there's always extenuating circumstances, you know.
Of course.
People, especially military, deploy or whatever, and they're gone for 6-8 months at a time. Or what if you just didn't want to go to the pool, you know?
And we do those, especially with the military, that if we get someone that calls in and says, hey, I got either a medical issue, I'm being deployed, I'm doing whatever, I'm not gonna be back, we set those on hold. We write a note on the cards. Like I say, it's the ones that are 2, 3, 4 years old.
But I paid for my
Is
10
the-
passes.
Is the aquatic center like seasonal, you might say, like there's more people in the summer or winter or not, or
No,
that it would
it's
affect their
year-round.
6 months that say they bought it at the end of a season? That's not,
It's, 12 months out of the year.
Mr. Hooper, did you have a reason that you went 6 months instead of just a straight 12-month? What was your thinking on that?
I probably wasn't. It was a number in my head. I'll be honest. You know, it's, there has to be some point in time to say, if you're gonna put a cancellation, to put a cancellation on it.
How many
but
punches are on a pass?
There's a 10 pass and a 10 punch and a 20 punch.
Nice.
There's youth, senior, and adult. Slightly different price.
Mr. Hooper, is that $150 for the rental, does that cover adequately for lifeguards? I know lifeguards were an issue here recently, so.
If I have them, it does. Yes, and that's, so depending on the pool size party, you're gonna have 2 to 4 lifeguards, $15 an hour, you know, depending on if they're part-time benefits, if they're casual, different things like that. But yeah, that's a good general range, so it does cover.
It's maybe a little outside of what we're discussing, but lifeguard retention, is this an avenue that we could use to increase lifeguard pay on these special events where they're a 2-hour rental, or say, hey, this lifeguard's covering for this, but your pay on this is a flat fee of $50, and rather than the
That would be
$30 that they would
HR,
earn
yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah, and Mr.
To
Chairman,
encourage.
members of the committee, from a retention standpoint of lifeguards, and honestly, there's a nationwide shortage on lifeguards. And so, I mean, the city of Clovis is competing with Canada Air Force Base for lifeguards. We're competing with CCC for lifeguards, and then, of course, we have our own lifeguards here. And so, there's just only so many of them. And so, yes, we want to be competitive with our pay rates, and we're trying to be competitive with our pay rates. But the other thing that we're trying to do is create a pool of lifeguards, pardon the pun, but to where we have casual employees, so similar to how we have EMS employees, to where, hey, we're going to have a lifeguard out. Well, we have a list of lifeguards, then we can basically start calling for substitute teachers. And so we're trying different approaches to keeping our lifeguards. What we've run into is that most of our kiddos are kids looking for summer jobs. And so it's fantastic during the summer break when the kids are out of school and they're looking for that summer job and can be lifeguards. Where we've noticed our issues and challenges with the lifeguards is when school goes back in. And so obviously a kiddo that's at school can't come and lifeguard for us. Otherwise the schools get mad at us for those kids being truant. So that's where we're trying to find those gaps of hey, you know, somebody's looking for a part-time job and you can cover these hours as part of our schedule. So that's what we're really trying to work out with our lifeguards. So do I think us increasing this fee to a point to where it covers our costs more for lifeguards? To try and do that and maintain competitive, you're going to increase your fees to where people aren't going to rent the facility in general. Long answer.
Very. Any other discussion?
I would, I'm sorry, go ahead, Isaac.
Oh, I was just gonna say, the existing memberships will be honored, of course, correct?
Yes, until they expire, because they were either 6-month or yearly. And I don't think we've had any, because we haven't done the aerobics in 2 years at least. And I don't think there's even any memberships currently. If there are, there's 2 or 3 of them.
so what do they use the punch passes for?
Punch passes is like, so I can, basically they use it for a 30-day, they just bring it in, or they don't even bring it in, we keep it there, and they mark off every time they come in.
Oh, instead of like you said, the current entry fees remain the same, so it's the entry fee they're using it on.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and it's a $3 break, basically. You're getting 10 for like 9 visits.
So you only have 10, you don't have the 20?
Yes, and same
Okay,
thing on
10
the
and
20. Yeah, you're getting that for like 18 of,
The expiration be the same on both?
yes. Or we could do it 6 and 12. I mean, there's, you know,
I don't know, I think 6 months might be kind of short, maybe 12 months for both, really, but that's just my opinion.
I don't know, I paid for my 20 punches, though.
I know.
So, I mean, what, I don't know. Me personally, I'm not sure I'd want to do away with or put an expiration date on it. I paid for my 20. If I use it in 3 years, I use it in 3 years. I mean, instead of you maintaining all the cards, make it their responsibility to maintain the card versus you tracking it and carrying it and having that cumbersome method. Put it on them. Put it on the person that buys the punch card.
In order for us to do that, and part of our conversation is we're gonna have to make that card to where it's much more difficult to be duplicated. And so we'll have to look at that because right now I think it's a pretty simple card. And so, not wanting somebody to make copies of
Can
those cards.
we automate the process?
and that's one of the things we've discussed too with our new automation system and things along those lines to get, yeah, that in place.
What did we decide on the golf course and the punch?
We did away with the punch card at the golf course and went back to the annual membership, but we didn't, the punch cards that were out there are still gonna be valid until.
So what if we did something like that? What if we said, because I understand your point, what if we allowed the punch cards, they're all good, every current punch card is good until June 30, 2023, which gives, this will become effective January 1, but then the people that currently have cards, we're giving them an additional 3 months. So they've got 9 months to use whatever they currently have. And if you're somebody who's not a frequent user of the pool, you obviously wouldn't buy a 20 punch card because you know you're not there very often, but you would buy the 10 use punch card. But every gym I've ever belonged to that's had a punch card for classes, they all expire at some point. You don't get to use them forever and ever. That's on you. I mean, you know the rules when you buy it. It expires in 6 months. If we want to do extenuating circumstances for the military, I'm absolutely fine with that. But I guess just to hold on to them forever and ever is a lot on the city.
In that same vein, if at the golf course you did that, but you also instated annual memberships, he's asking to do away with memberships, so we're doing away with all of it for them. Why are we gonna treat them differently?
You mean treat the pool differently?
Yeah, then,
So you say go back to memberships and get rid of punch cards?
something to think about. No, I don't know what I think about it. You just said it. I had time to.
Well, I mean, that's kind of my
process it,
point.
yeah, but
I'm kind of one for like making things pretty
Consistent.
consistent across the board. It keeps confusion from happening. So yes, that's another option. Get rid of the punch card altogether starting in June and then go to a membership. I don't know.
Exactly.
But our current punch card holders bought it with no expiration date on it. So I don't know that we could go in today and say, okay, now you're gonna have an expiration date on it.
I think you can if you give them 9 months. I think that's fair.
Would we notify them all, though, that it was going to expire?
I don't know if we have
Exactly.
Yeah, I know,
So, I
that's the
mean,
thing.
We'd have to verify that they got the notification. Because we sold them to them with the premise that there was an expiration date on it to begin with. And now we're gonna come in and say, because at the golf course, we just did away with the punch card, so nobody could buy any more punch cards. We didn't say you couldn't come in and use your current punch card. Once your punch card was empty, then you wouldn't be able to use it any longer.
I would agree with that. I would honor current punch cards, I would honor, but not sell anymore.
Yeah, I think you move forward with expirations, and I'm making them with you. If you buy a 20 punch card, knowing it's a year, it's good for a year. That's going to encourage you to either use it or lose it.
I don't have a problem with the new ones, right?
Right.
Where I have the concern is with the ones that are currently out there. They bought that with the premise that there wasn't an expiration date. And now we're gonna come back and change the rules on them, potentially.
Can we give them the ability after a time limit, you know, like the statute of limitations on the punch card after 3 years? If no one's used it, then we don't have to keep it forever and ever?
I don't know what information, Russell, do you know what information we collect when we sell a punch card? When we have it on file, do we have, obviously we have a name.
That's the name.
And that, I think, yeah.
I think that's it, is a name.
No phone number, no address, no, wow.
And again, normally it's the same people, like, I used to do water aerobics, my dad bought a punch card. He went with me to water aerobics, so, I mean, but all they asked for was his name, and then after the second or third time, they don't even ask anything, you just walk in like, oh, hi, and they punch your card.
Because they know who you
They
are.
pull it out, and they know who you are, so.
But you don't have water aerobics classes.
Correct.
So all they're using the punch passes for is the entry fee.
To swim, correct.
And right now, what would a membership be for? The classes or for the entry fee to the,
So right now, the membership fee would just be entry fee,
is the entry fee?
correct?
And you said there's only a dozen memberships right now?
I'd say 2 or 3.
Oh.
I mean, we're,
No,
as far
people
as
that have a
memberships,
membership, right.
we have none of the aerobics.
But
Because
punch
like I said,
cards, they have a stack.
How many punch cards do
Membership
you
or
think?
punch cards?
Punch cards, you have a stack. Membership, you don't have very many. Punch cards, they have a stack of them.
Oh, they have a stack of them. And that's kind of where we're getting, there's 2 or 3 index cards, boxes, recipe card boxes full.
And most of those are old, you're saying?
Yes.
But they still have punches left on them.
Right,
They haven't
right.
been discarded of.
Right.
Couldn't you put a notice? I mean, couldn't, effective January 1st, all cards have to be used within this year? And then after 2023, they all expire?
Yes.
I mean, couldn't
That's
that
always
be
an option.
done?
Like I say, you can just put up a poster at the aquatics facility, and then the people that come in, obviously let them know if they have one.
They could post it on Facebook, they could, you can get that out there.
And the punch card saves them $3?
Yes, approximately, depending on if it's the 20 or the 10.
If you're gonna do away with the memberships, maybe after the expiration of these cards, if you set an expiration, you should do away with the punch cards. Or
I would
not.
tend to that direction also. Yeah, I would also tend to that direction.
The only reason I would, the counter argument to that would be, I'm going to the pool, I don't want to take cash with me. I've
Well,
bought a
that's
20
true. That's
punch
true.
card and they keep it on file or I just have to bring that card with me.
Yep,
Right, I
I'll
see.
use my dad, and we went twice a week to water aerobics, and he didn't want to bring $3 or whatever it was a time, so he just bought 20 punches.
Right. So, and that's, I totally agree with that argument too, because there's a lot of people just walk in their swimsuit
Right,
and a t-shirt,
yeah, I would see that too.
you know, car keys, leave the wallet out, you know.
All right, any other discussion on the aquatics fees? Anybody want to care to
Where do
dabble
we-
in a motion?
It seems like we're split. Do we want to let the punch cards, the existing punch cards run through until they use them up? And any new cards after a certain date are 12-month cards?
Yeah, it seems, if we have some that are already 3 years old, we don't want to leave them out there forever. That we need to maybe do something about posting, like Megan said, that they have until a certain date to use them. Because they've probably forgotten about them, actually.
Yeah, people have moved, people passed away, you know, different things along those that at some point we just need to
I
clean
think
up.
what Lisa said is very fair. If we give them through the end of 2023 to use a current punch card that's in the file box, then they have a year and 3 months to use them. Any new punch cards sold after, I'd like to say,
January 1st.
This becomes effective.
yes, January 1st, then they have a 6-month time limit. So buy accordingly, by the 10 or by the 20, depending on how you use it.
I would go with a 12-month.
Couldn't you
That
do
doesn't
like,
matter to me, either one.
6 months for a 10 punch and 12 months for a 20 punch?
We could.
No, I think make it consistent
make it
across the
consistent.
board.
We'll get
Yeah.
confused
That
though.
too. It'd
Just make
be easier
6
for them
months.
to track if it's just a 12-month, you know, they just go through every month and.
With extenuating circumstances, obviously.
And then I would also recommend that whatever the motion's gonna end up being is that we track a little more information on the punch cards, maybe address, phone number. So
Yes,
we
sir,
can
we
reach
can,
out.
we can make the
The new cards.
application a little more, with more information, contact
Name,
info.
address, phone number.
Which, and I think everything on all our applications from this point need to have address, phone number, and email.
Yeah.
Just to build the database within Parks and Rec, if nothing else.
Perfect. Any further discussion? Anybody got an idea on a motion?
I will
Very
make
specific on the motion, please,
I
because we
will-
have lots of conversation.
Make a motion to give the locker rental fees at $10 a month. The rental fee for the splash pad, Potter Pool, Aquatic Center will be $150 for a 2-hour rental. We will remove all memberships to the Aquatic Center. We will allow current punch cards to be valid until December 31st, 2023. All new punch cards sold starting January 1st will be good for a 12-month period.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to basically the recommendations that Mr. Hooper made, with the exception that we're going to go to a 12-month expiration on new punch cards. And then the current punch cards will be extended until 31 December 2023. The fees and the new punch cards will become valid 1 January 2023. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, that's 2 down, Mr. Hooper.
Tree spade. Currently, we get several requests a year for people to basically come dig a tree up for them, with our tree spade. Currently, we're doing $250 for the first hour and $150 for each additional. I just like to up that to $300 and $200. Again, wear and tear on the equipment and man hours.
Steel price, everything else.
Every cost has gone up.
Any discussion?
I don't guess you have any idea of revenue or,
No, really don't. It varies so much. Sometimes we had 2 or 3 rentals, I think last year, and then we had like 5, I think so far this year on different things, and it's,
Why are we in the equipment rental business?
The tree spade was originally, I want to say, purchased with a grant. And so as one of those requirements of that grant is that we had to make it available to the public.
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion?
How long does it take on average to spade a tree?
a lot of variables. If the ground's in the right condition, they can do it in 15, 20 minutes. There's gonna be 30 minutes to get it there, get set up, then it's 15, 20 minutes, you pull a plug out of the ground. Generally, what happens then is, depending on where the person wants it moved to, sometimes they donate it to the city, sometimes they want it moved to a different piece of property. Then we have to go to that second piece of property, pull the plug out to put the first tree in, and then bring the plug back to the second one. So it can vary. And again, if they water the ground good, it comes out real easy. If it's not, it's like jackhammer and concrete and takes longer. So, we've done anywhere from 2 hours to 6 hours.
Oh, wow.
So
We do try to give the people,
if it's $250 for the first hour and it takes you 15 minutes, you're still gonna charge them $250?
well, yes, because there's a setup, us getting us there, us hooking it up and getting all that. So I'm saying 15 minutes to actually pull the plug, not 15 minutes from our shop to our shop.
All right, any further discussion?
I'll make a motion to accept his recommendation.
All right, I have a motion.
Second?
I'm gonna have a second to take Mr. Hooper's recommendation and increase our fees to $300 for first hour and $200 for each additional hour. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Sorry, Isaac, I'll wait for you next time. All right.
You're fine, I said it.
Zoo fees.
Zoo fees. Currently, they are $2 for kids, $4 for let's see, let me make sure I'm reading my numbers right. $2 for kids, $4 for adults, and $3 for seniors. Group rates are $1 per person with reservation in advance. I'm requesting that we basically increase those to 50%, which sounds like a large percentage. On the other hand, that takes it from $2 to $3. Takes it from 4 to 6. Seniors would go up to $4.50. And then group rates, I'd like to actually go to $2 per person if they have a reservation. What I'm also wanting to do though is, do some discounts for some hometown basically. So Clovis residents and the military, I'd like to do half price every second Saturday. Seniors receive a half price on the fourth Saturday. So it gives some people some options if they are on the low income or want to take advantage of that. Basically, all our money goes back into the zoo for all our gate fees. I'm wanting to say, I don't remember the exact number, it's right at, we did 150 last year, if I'm thinking right. This increase would take us to 225. There's a lot more you can do with that, obviously. We're trying to make a lot of zoo improvements right now, from the front entrance to our tiger cages to other things. And the revenue will help, let's just be honest about it. Costs have gone up on everything, obviously, from feed to fuel to material to put in the new cages. We have acquired several new animals that we've been working on and doing stuff, so that's just some of the justification behind it. On some of these bottom items, I don't know if that's specifically for y'all or just to.
No, those are, I was going to mention that those are other programs that we're looking at for our zoo as well, that we'll continue to work with the Parks and Rec Department to establish what those programs look like, and working with our city attorney, so working through those. Yeah, and there are more programs that we don't have a fee set up because they're not currently in place, so there's not a request or recommendation on those yet.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion or questions on the increase in rates?
I'm inclined not to raise the senior rate any higher than what adults were already being charged. So $4 is $4.50.
I like that. I like keeping it at dollars. I like not getting into the change. That seems like a nightmare to have to deal with. I have no objection to that. We could go on.
And I guess some follow-up information on some of this. The Spring River Zoo in Roswell. Currently, they charge residents $5 and non-residents $10 to get in. That's adults. The seniors, they do charge less, and some of the students, they charge less. At the Amarillo Zoo, adults are $4.50, seniors are $3.50. It is a smaller zoo. The Albuquerque gets higher at $10 for New Mexico residents, and they did $14.50 for non-New Mexico residents. The seniors at $5 and the non-residents at $7.50. The Abilene Zoo, which is something of a comparable size, is adults are 10, seniors are 9, kids are 7. It's just, just some comparisons. Now, we also had some of one of our goals is to become AZA certified. There's certain things you have to accomplish and to do to meet their qualifications to become one of their certified zoos. And I understand San Diego Zoo, they're charging $55 to get in. We're not there. Never will be. It'd be nice.
Never say never.
Fort Worth Zoo is charging $17 for adults. Like I say, Albuquerque at $14.50, the Houston Zoo at $22, Roswell at $10. So these are just some other numbers to throw out
And the
there.
Roswell Zoo is smaller than the Clovis Zoo.
Correct.
All right.
I just went to the zoo in San Antonio Saturday, and it was $33 a person.
Which is also AZ.
And the elephants were a no-show, so I think you're a pretty good bargain.
Any further discussion?
So do you have a problem with collecting 50 cents? I mean, I don't know how people pay, if they pay credit card or cash, but.
No.
I mean.
At this point in time, we don't. We have set
Okay.
up with the square so we can do credit cards, we do cash, we do it either way.
Okay, thank you.
We also have the gift shop there, so its change is not
Okay.
the issue.
Further discussion?
And on to the senior question, like I say, and that's one of the reasons we also do try to give at least one of those Saturdays is, come on out and you get the discount, which would take off from that. and then we're getting into 25s.
I would like to make a motion to approve as requested the changes, with the exception of seniors going back to $4 even.
I have a motion to take the recommended changes that Mr. Hooper has made, except for the seniors being a $4 increase, or dollar increase to $4. Do I have a second? All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say aye. I didn't wake Isaac. All right. Moving on, rental fees.
Rental fees, I'm assuming I'm gonna do this as a group, other than one
Mr.
line at a
Chairman,
time.
just to make sure, that was effective, January 1, 2023?
Yes, effective 1 January 2023.
And, Mr. Chairman, to save Mr. Hooper some talking time, obviously, the current recommendations are on the left for the individual shelters and pavilions, and with his proposed recommendations and requested recommendations on the right. So looking at the rental fees, not including Roy Walker at this point, so we can discuss those outside, I would recommend, if there's any questions regarding any of the specific items, to move forward with the discussion versus individually going through each one of those.
I can concur with that. Did anybody have any questions with the rental fee changes recommended?
I have none.
I had one. Why why was your recommendation to go down so much on the sunken garden?
It went from,
I guess it's going from a flat rate to an hourly rate.
correct. And then we had a separate rate for pictures and a separate rate if you're doing something else, and we took the pictures out of the equation. I hate to say, I don't really care what you're using it for necessarily from a, facility point of view. You're still taking up so much time in using the facility. We still have to prep it the same and do everything else.
Okay. So any other questions or concerns with the fee change?
And Commissioner Jones, these also are designated revenues that go directly to support additional projects above and beyond the budget for the parks, recreation, or for the zoo.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And I guess one other clarification on NetHalk, the shelter fees that are marked as not applicable, those are the ones that you're proposing to eliminate the fee for, because those are your much smaller shelters versus your larger ones, and so those would go back to like a first come, first served basis.
And part of the reason on that was a $30 rental fee doesn't necessarily, there's 15 shelters on the north side and 20 shelters on the south. There's really only 3 of them that we feel are reservable or should be.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
I'd make a motion to go ahead and approve with the
I'll
recommended.
stop talking.
I have a motion to approve the recommended changes to the
I'll
fees.
second.
And I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Effective 1 January 2023. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right. All right, last one, Roy Walker.
Roy Walker Gym. The changes I want to make is the individual gymnasium fee went up from, I'm requesting to go up from 50 to 75. Part of that came into, if you came in and wanted to rent this gym, and the multipurpose room only came up to $125. But if I wanted to rent you the whole facility, it was $200. So it was kind of a little offset. There still is some discrepancy of the $25, if you go 75 and the 25. But that also does get you all the common areas in exclusive use. So your facility, if you're renting for yourself, the whole facility, you have exclusive use, as opposed to if you're renting one gymnasium or 2, there's going to be other people involved. And that was where the 25 came in. I think currently everything we do is maxed out at 5 hours. So if you're renting it for 12, if you need to be there from 7 in the morning till 7 at night, you're only paying 5 hours. It was set up to not charge more. Troy, I'd like to at least put a 12-hour maximum on a day. And then if we have an event that we also have to cover and work on, and let's say that comes down to, I think, volleyball and some others that we have to stay late on during the days, I'd like to also charge man hours at 30 an hour. I think currently we're charging 25 for those.
And these rental fees for that gym go directly back to the gym for capital improvement or whatever's needed?
Do they go to the gym or do they go to, just to the parks?
They go to the recreation department.
Which is a division of, yeah.
Yes.
So yes.
How many times do you have to clean up after an event? You know, we're kind of getting the same place we were with the Ingram room, right? Do you have an issue with people not cleaning up after themselves and your staff having to do that?
Very rarely. We generally, you know, make sure that we know that they're including the start and the cleanup time involved. This weekend, we're doing one to where there's a boxing event on Saturday. Well, the event's gonna finish up at 10 o'clock at night. We're gonna charge them 2 hours on Sunday to come back and clean the event. If they don't do that, then obviously we're still gonna charge them the 2 hours, and I'm gonna have my guys in there cleaning it up. So it kind of works out that way. It's also where the deposit goes into at 150, that's 6 or 7 man hours. So we can get.
But, yeah, I'm just concerned about the gymnasium for, you know, $50. Is that deposit enough kind of thing?
Right, and that's where normally the people that rent it and are renting that much are either their school groups, there's somebody wanting to do a basketball practice. And so you hate to say they're responsible people as opposed to some of the ones that rent out the YRB. But they tend to be groups, things along those lines that we have had business with before, so we have a history.
Okay.
There's been occasions where we've waived the deposit just because it's the 10th time you've rented it. There's never been an issue, so you also realize that if you don't do it, next time there's not going to be the same approval process.
So I have a question. So I understand, right? So say I'm coaching a youth girls volleyball team, and I want to bring them there every Monday night Mondays, there's always something. I'm just picking a time. Monday from 4:30 to 5:30 for practice.
Correct.
I have to pay as the coach $75 per every Monday to come and use that gym to practice?
If you wanted to do it as a private rental, yes. And that gives exclusivity, so, because we have basketball teams. To where on the other hand, if you're wanting, if you're wanting to shoot some basketball with your friends to practice basketball, let's say, you can come in and do that for free. If you don't want anybody else in the gym with you while you're doing that, then you would need to rent the gym. Does that kind of, volleyball's a little bit different since it does take up the whole gym, but it also takes setup time and everything else involved. As opposed to a part of a league, which goes into league user fees, which are set differently.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions?
So if these rental fees go to the recreation department, then the recreation department would transfer funds to Roy Walker to actually do any capital improvements?
Yeah, there's a line item, I think.
Some way? I mean, I've heard that the
1304.
gyms are in bad shape, and I have no idea, because I haven't been there. But if that's the case, then that's how the money would get approved from that way.
Yes, and I think it would go directly in, so it wouldn't get mixed with my lawn maintenance fund or my other funds. It would be, or zoo, by that matters. It stays specifically with recreation, which at this point is Roy Walker.
Okay.
Great.
Why have you decreased the deposit for the full facility from $250 down to $150?
Again, I feel like I can clean that full facility in an 8-hour day type thing, and so it was just manpower.
Okay.
If there is damage to something, I hate to say nothing's gonna cover it. If they tear up a bleacher, that's something that's never gonna get recovered through a deposit.
Okay, great. Any other discussion? Questions?
How often do you have a full gym rented out?
Full gym or full facility?
I'm sorry, just one gym. How often do you have?
One gym, you've helped me with some of those, probably maybe once a month for a gym rental. It's either a basketball team wanting to do something. We've had some where someone couldn't get into the schools, and so they wanted to rent it to practice, things like that. We've had a few Air Force groups come and rent it.
So if you don't, is it possible for go back to the team idea, if you have a volleyball team, is it possible for a volleyball team to come in there and use the gym and practice without paying?
Yes. What I've tried to discuss with Tari, and we've gone back and forth about it. If your team wanted to come, let's say on a Saturday when we don't have any scheduled, nothing scheduled, but you wanted to call us up a couple days in advance and say, hey, my girls want to come in to practice between 2 and 3 in the afternoon. Then we're going to have to set up the equipment for you, which we can do, and we can make arrangements like that and just know it in advance. As opposed to if you show up, nothing's set up, nothing's done. Does that, I mean, so yeah, we can set up a volleyball just like we would, hey, a group of guys want to come in and play basketball.
The difference would be is anybody could come in at that point in time and play a pickup game and want to get on the volleyball court or want to play in the basketball court.
Right, I understand, but I also want people to be able to have a place where they can practice, but knowing that there might be somebody shooting hoops over here on this basketball court, but I don't want to make it where a team has no place to go and practice.
Right. No, and so those, yeah, they're always available. I mean, on something that would have to be set up specifically, we'd have to have some notice.
And that's, and Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Paula, and that's, speaking from personal experience with volleyball specifically in that sport, is a lot of times when your youth leagues were run, they were also utilized the school gyms for practice times. And I know that the school does set fees because they maintain an employee on site while that gym is being utilized for practice. And so those are some of the conversations that we've preliminarily discussed with the school district as far as how do we better utilize all the facilities we have within our community to where it's not the city, we have our facilities. Does the city need to go out and build 100 new gyms? No, we just need to figure out a way to utilize all the gyms we have around the community together, and how those partnerships and relationships look between the city and the schools. And so I think that while, yes, you would have to reserve spot for practice, just like you have to coordinate with the leagues and they have to reserve times at the schools and then those individual teams pick a time to go practice. I think that would be something very similar that we would have here. So in working with the schools, and if you needed more spaces to practice, I think that's how that would come into play. So as far as the rental of the facility itself, I can't imagine an instance if there is a league, if them having to find other rental space to utilize. Surely they would have thought that through, I guess, per se, and already worked with the schools for those facilities. Because there's no way just our two gyms, you could cycle all those teams through.
No, but I guess I just want to make sure that if there's a group of kids that want to go play volleyball, that they can go play volleyball and not have to pay $75 to play volleyball.
And what we would have to do is we'd have to program open gym time for volleyball since we do only have the two gyms.
Right.
And so we would have to, from a scheduling standpoint, and say, hey, we have open volleyball from X time to X time. Basketball or whatever else can be going on at the other gym, and have that gym reserved specifically for that. If it's not getting utilized, then we would have to ask ourselves, is setting it up always for volleyball meaningful and purposeful? So that's just something we'd have to schedule, once again, an open volleyball time for anybody to come and use and play, basically pickup games.
And we do get calls even from private citizens. Hey, me and my friends want to come up and play volleyball. When's a good time? And I've just always told them, if you schedule it and come. Now, we've had 2 different occasions where we've set up nets and set aside the thing and no one showed up also. So then, of course, you have to take them down because you can't let the basketball players run and still tear up a net.
It goes back to us trying to be purposeful in how we schedule and try to encourage people to utilize our recreational facilities in Roy Walker and advertise those open gym times for folks to use.
So like the pickleball that I know seniors play, that's like kind of an open thing. They don't pay for that all
Correct.
the time. It's like what Justin was saying.
And they come in, set up their own stuff and take everything, so it's
Okay.
And it's also, the difference between that is it can be done at 10 o'clock in the morning on a weekday.
Right.
to where yours necessarily couldn't.
Great. Any further discussion? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as requested.
I have a motion to approve as requested with a start date of 1 January 2023. I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Alrighty, well, I want to thank everyone. I know this was a long meeting.
Thank you.
I think we made some great headway and some great questions were asked, and we came down to some really good conclusions. We did table 2 items. Those items are going to be the library department and municipal court, once we get some more information. And we just need to set our next date. Do we want to go just 2 weeks from today? Does this seem reasonable?
Does that give everyone time to get the information?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Be Columbus Day, so.
That would not be good then. How does Tuesday work for everybody, the 11th?
I'm not available.
You're not available on the 11th? Do we want to go 3 weeks then, on the 17th?
We have a Parks meeting on the 17th.
That gives
Parks
them more
meeting.
time to.
Doesn't have to be a Monday.
No.
Feel free to utilize the entire calendar.
The entire thing? Like all the days?
Like all the days.
Well,
Well, not all of them. We'll let you know if something else is there.
I picked 2 already and they've been shot down, so. How about the 12th on a Wednesday?
I'm
Till
available.
October?
That'll work.
Isaac, does that work for you? When do you get back?
I'll be out all of October, but if it's at the same time, I think it'll be fine.
Okay, great.
Because it's 6:30 where I'm at.
Right.
So.
All right, well, you enjoy school, and we'll set this for 12 October at 5:30 in the evening. All right, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much.